There was a time when life seemed so much more straightforward. You started out as a teacher, perhaps you became a head of department, and then maybe you made it all the way to the top as a head teacher. But your role didn't really change. You remained the lead teacher with a clear focus on the classroom and teaching and learning. But then things began to change. Headship became more varied, more complex, and much more accountable. Indeed, a recent survey estimated that government initiatives had added 58 new responsibilities to headship.
There is no question that the responsibilities are now much wider and the accountabilities are growing year after year. And people, I think, are looking at that and looking at the salary differential and thinking, is it worth it? Do I really want that level of, if you like, professional risk, which is now associated with becoming a head teacher? Because we've seen in the last 12 months particularly a quite dramatic growth in the number of our members who are secondary school heads and deputies who are getting the sack.
Those schools who are really making a difference in connecting to communities are doing it because there is an approach, a much broader approach to leadership, with a number of people having roles in connecting to communities, understanding what's going on, and bringing that learning back into the school. It is not the one person. And if somebody thinks that being a head teacher is about them being in charge, then really they shouldn't be applying for the job.
The changing role of school leaders has caused a rethink of heads' qualifications. The National Professional Qualification for Head Teachers has been around for some time now, but since April 2009, all new first-time head teachers have had to be NPQH graduates, and the qualification has been revised to take account of the new roles and responsibilities of head teachers. Understanding those roles and responsibilities is the focus of this master's degree in leadership at the Institute of Education in London.
What makes a good head teacher?
Someone who can inspire
and motivate.
It's really about trying to get them to think about leadership in different kind of ways. I think it gives them a real hunger to know more about leadership and to be questioning and challenging, and to not necessarily accept that whatever is put in front of you is the way to do it.
If you are passionate about the community that you're serving and the pupils that you're working with and wanting them to sort of fulfil their potential, then it's about ensuring that not a single one of them, as far as possible, fails.
Be able to self-reflect and be able to accept that you may not know everything, and be able to challenge your own assumptions, and that ability to change direction if you feel challenged about something.
The NPQH, and as you probably know, the National College have just reviewed this, is a very specific training programme. It goes through some of the core elements of what it means to be a leader, and I suppose it's very much about developing the skills. And actually I had a most wonderful thing that I came across today, which was from one of the head teachers that I've been working with, one of the London head teachers. And she said, described in these terms, which I thought was lovely, the NPQH is a highway code. You need to learn it, but it doesn't mean you can drive, particularly in the city.
With a licence to lead, heads have much more freedom now. Indeed, England has the second most devolved system of school leadership in the world, according to the OECD. Schools are better placed to become hubs for their communities, offering services far beyond the classroom. Do you need a different set of skills from, say, a head teacher 10, 15, 20 years ago whose only really responsibility was what went on in the classroom?
Yes, when I became a head teacher 23 years ago, my responsibility was £8,000 and standards in the classrooms. And now I have a £2 million budget, and I have a whole wide range of responsibilities, which the government increase obviously each year, and the accountability for those responsibilities, so now community cohesion and a whole range of issues. I just feel I can meet the needs of our children and the community much better by having the tools we have, in the sense of having an integrated children's centre as part of the school, and therefore we can actually provide family support, we can provide speech and language therapy and the like.
Do you think all the changes that we're seeing now with school structures, partnerships, federations, executive heads, does that begin to make it a bit easier to deal with this evolving nature of headship?
I don't think structural change is the answer. I think the answer is supporting school leadership. School leaders have a very difficult role, and we should be supporting in achieving the outcomes of that role being very positive. Structures themselves don't improve schools. And I think just labelling or relabelling, and I think that the government needs to take on board that every school tries to be as best it possibly can with its children, trying to have impact on their learning.
If you knew how it was going to change back then, would you still, do you think, have gone for headship?
Oh, undoubtedly. I still enjoy it now, and I enjoyed it 23 years ago and through. There have been some tough times during those 23 years, and I've often gone back into the classroom at times to just feel where I've come from and spent time with children, time with staff. And what we look at society now is that we are somewhat isolating our head teacher, our school leaders, and we need to give them proper, effective support.
So with so many changes happening to the nature of headship, what's the view from the staff room? What do classroom teachers, assistant heads and deputy heads make of this much more complex role and indeed the very intense accountability?
As an assistant head, working with people, working with children is the sort of balance that I want to maintain to then move up to headship. The balance slightly alters, and the involvement with managing adults, perhaps more, not being with the children so much, the balance would shift, so that wouldn't suit me.
You know, I'm trained to be a teacher so I can be in the classroom with the children, and I think it would take a lot to be able to take me out from that.
We have more of a role with the children, or rather than the kind of executive kind of decisions. We drive from the vision of the head, but we still, you know, we're sort of the ground force driving forward.
Although you've done the NPQH, qualified to apply to become a head teacher, you've decided for now that that's not something you're going to do.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I'm quite happy, and I love being with the children and working with the staff in a different role to what a head would do.
Okay, I desperately want you to become a head teacher. I've got a new school opening down the road. I'll say, look, I'll put in a chief executive. They'll do all the management bit. I just want you to be the lead teacher. Does that make it more attractive?
Possibly. The element of being a lead teacher, because that's what the vast majority of people coming into the profession do. That's what they're trained to do. They gain experience in it. They work with other adults within, you know, team setups. They might mentor NQTs. They build on their experience as a teacher, but essentially they come in it to teach children.
So partly as a result of this, it's become increasingly difficult to persuade senior teachers to step up to headship. Indeed, some people are now talking about a crisis in head teacher recruitment. Indeed, in the academic year 2007-8, 1/3 of primary headships remained vacant after the first round of advertising. In secondary schools, 21% of headships, just over 1/5, stayed empty first time round. And for special schools, the figure rose to 37%, well over 1/3. As more than half of England's heads may retire by 2013, the push is on to recruit more school leaders.
Good afternoon, children.
To help this drive to recruit more school leaders, 2 initiatives have begun. The Future Leaders programme pairs teachers in urban schools with coaching from an outstanding leader, plus a mentor, and residentials to cover all elements of leadership. Teachers' salaries are met up to £50,000 per year. On the Associate Head Teacher programme, experienced deputies have the chance to hone their skills in a local challenging school with head teacher support, an external mentor and development days. This cost is met by the National College for School Leadership. Now, there was a time when there was just one simple classical model of school organisation. You had one freestanding school with one head teacher answerable to one governing body. But now, just as Mike Welsh's approach to head teaching has changed, so too have the number of different models of school organisation. There's the original model of one head, one school, one governing body, called single schools. 2 or more schools working with a single governing body is called a hard federation. There may be 1 head per school or fewer, depending on local choice. In a soft federation, each school keeps its own governing body but may share head teachers. There is a strategic governing body committee. The next model is a mix of schools which are part of a hard federation within a wider soft federation. There's likely to be combinations of different leaders rather than one head teacher. Schools in a partnership create a formal written agreement to work together with shared aims and practice to raise standards. This may lead to more formal arrangements. Schools can also work together to set up a trust with external partners such as charities or universities, acquiring more flexibility over admissions and management through foundation status. Leadership can be varied. And finally, academies are publicly funded independent schools where ministers expect innovative approaches to teaching and learning. An academy may have a conventional principal and a chief executive, who may not even have been a teacher. So, to find out more about those models of leadership, I've come to the National College of School Leadership to talk to two expert consultants, Derryn Harvey and Barry Bainbridge. Do these new models of leadership, are they in any way going to help with this recruitment problem, do you think?
We believe so. There are some really extremely good examples of groups of head teachers overcoming that isolation of the role of head teacher, increasing leadership capacity. I can think of a little federation in a rural circumstance where each of the schools would have had a teaching head teacher. Now they've federated, they've got an executive head who is non-teaching with heads of school in each of the tiny schools that go with it. A leadership team of 4, where previously there were 3 individual and isolated head teachers. That makes the whole thing much more attractive than it otherwise would have been.
But I think, if I can come in there, Barry, I think also you and I will agree that we've seen examples of where federation and greater collaboration has been driven by the need to recruit a head teacher.
Oh, yes.
It doesn't work.
No.
Because it has to start the other way around. It has to have some basis in standards and what's best for the children in the classrooms. If it's just, oh, let's sort our problem out, we'll get a head teacher if we go and find 6 schools to band together, doesn't work. Disaster.
The big cry used to be standards, not structures, but isn't this actually all about structures?
No. I think that, again, in our experience, we're seeing that the structures are facilitating the models. So where you're going to get a very successful collaboration, a very successful new model, it's always driven by what is it that the school has as their vision, and then they'll usually go and look and say what structures are there to facilitate it.
The accountability chain, the link is still there, but to have the extended model of leadership and have an extended leadership team, certainly Ofsted are now getting much more used to inspecting federations and understanding the relationship between a head of teaching and learning and an executive head.
In March 2009, ministers revealed plans for accelerated headship programmes as part of a reform paper.
I can't see anybody coming to headship from a standing start in 4 years, and I really can't see the point of having a programme that does that, which would inevitably have some targets around it. The target shouldn't be around getting X number of people into headship in Y years. It should be actually about helping people to become successful head teachers.
There are certainly some big challenges ahead for school leadership. There's absolutely no sign of any reduction in the high levels of accountability faced by head teachers. But it's just possible that the evolving new models of leadership, with a greater emphasis on partnership and collaboration, will make the job more attractive.